Taylor County, Kentucky, February 6, 1914. A farm sits quiet in the winter cold, but everyone involved already knows this day could end badly. Inside the house are two brothers who have lost their land. A debt they couldn't pay has cost them everything, and they've made their intentions clear. If anyone comes onto their property, they will be shot. A county jailer hears the warning, a deputy coroner hears the warning, and so does the man leading the effort, Taylor County Coroner Lyle Matthews. Today, most people think of the coroners as the investigators of the dead. In 1914 Kentucky, that wasn't always the case. Sometimes they carried badges, sometimes they enforced the law, and sometimes they walked directly into danger. The officers slowly move towards the farmhouse. The warning has already been given. Turn back, stay off the property, or die. Sudden gunshot, then another, and another. Silence. When the shooting stops, one officer is wounded, one officer is dead. A wife has become a widow, 3 children have lost their father, and Taylor County will experience the only line of duty death of a peace officer in its history. More than a century later, most Kentuckians have never heard his name, but in a cemetery in Campbellsville, the story remains buried. This is the forgotten story of the Taylor County Coroner, Lyle George Matthews. In Kentucky, some stories never get finished. They linger unanswered, unresolved, and often forgotten. This is Buried in the Bluegrass, a true crime podcast from O'Gurg Media. Each episode will dive into cases from across the Commonwealth, focusing on documented facts and those pesky little unanswered questions. Good evening and welcome back in, and once again, thanks for joining in and putting up with my madness, if you will. Tonight we are visiting Taylor County, Kentucky. It was established in 1848 it was named after our great 12th president, Zachary Taylor. Campbellsville is the county seat. It's located pretty much in as central in Kentucky as you can possibly get. It's often considered part of the state's heartland region. And apparently during the 1800s and early 1900s, Taylor County was heavily affected by railroad debt and tax disputes. Historical records show periods where coroners exercised sheriff-like authority, and at least one documented case, one individual served as both coroner and sheriff. And Kentucky law historically has allowed coroners to assume the duties of sheriff when vacancies exist. That brings us to tonight's subject, Mr. Lyle George Matthews. He was basically killed in February 6, 1914, while attempting to assist with an eviction. And to this day, he remains the only known line-of-duty death of a peace officer in Taylor County. Modern memorials identify him also as the only Kentucky coroner known to ever have been killed in the line of duty. With that being said, Campbellsville University is one of the county's most recognizable institutions, and Mathews Street on the university campus is locally said to be named in honor of Coroner Matthews. Taylor County is also home to Green River Lake. It's one of central Kentucky's most popular recreation areas. The county has deep agricultural roots with tobacco farming, and that played a major role in its economy for generations. In 1914, when Matthews was killed, most county roads were dirt roads, and travel between communities was often by horse, wagon, or early automobiles. Today, Taylor County is known for Campbellsville University, Green River Lake, and a quiet, rural way of life. But in 1914, a land dispute, an armed standoff, and a county coroner acting as a peace officer would leave a mark on Taylor County history that remains unmatched more than a century later. Who was Coroner Lyle Matthews? Before we talk about the shooting, we should talk about the man at the center of the story. His name was Lyle George Matthews, although many modern records and memorials spell his last name with 2 T's, so I'm not sure if that was a transcription error or we're just rewriting history with an extra T. Regardless, he was born on February 22nd, 1869, and by 1914, he had become a respected public servant in Taylor County. He was married, and he was a father of 3 children. Today, when most people hear the word coroner, they think someone who investigates death and works closely with medical examiners and law enforcement. But back in the day in Kentucky, back in the day, I mean more than a century ago, that job was very different. Coroners were actually considered peace officers. In certain situations, they could perform the duties normally associated with the sheriff. In county like Taylor County, where local government had experienced decades of unusual circumstances involving railroad debt and taxation disputes, those duties sometimes placed coroners directly in dangerous situations. Which is proof positive from our story tonight, because in January of 1914, Lyle Matthews was appointed the Taylor County coroner, and just over a month later, he would be dead. No one could have imagined that an attempted eviction out on a rural farm would become one of the most significant law enforcement tragedies in Taylor County history. The shooting occurred February 6, 1914. Winter still held its grip on central Kentucky, and you're talking rural farmland. Like I said, dirt roads. When you travel between cities, it was early vehicles that would beat you to death. And now records don't specifically state, but they do state that the farm had already been sold to satisfy debt. I'm not sure if that was a railroad debt or a taxation debt. It doesn't specify. It also does not specify the names of the killers, the shooters. They're literally, in all records, considered 2 brothers and a sister, which they had already apparently told the police officers they were not welcome on the property and they would be shot. They were not hiding their intentions or sugarcoating it one bit. Anyone, it wasn't even just the police officers, anyone who come onto the farm would be shot. And it obviously was not an idle threat. Coroner Lyle Matthews, a deputy coroner, and a county jailer were tasked with carrying out the eviction. The 3 men approached the property despite all the warnings, and what happened next took only seconds. As the officers neared the farmhouse, gunfire erupted. The brothers opened fire on the approaching officials. Coroner Matthews was struck and mortally wounded. The deputy coroner was also hit and injured. The quiet Kentucky farm had become a crime scene in a flash. And for the first time, and for that matter, the only time in Taylor County history, a peace officer had been killed in the line of duty. Eventually, the surviving officers gained control of the situations. The 2 brothers were taken into custody, and their sister was also arrested. All 3 were charged with murder. Now, again, this being as old as it is, without going into a deep dive into a rabbit hole and requesting all kinds of records, we don't know the names of the brothers or the sisters. For that matter, we don't know Matthew's wife. We know one child's name through one of the Find a Grave websites, I think. But other than that, very limited information, we'll put it that way. But obviously, for Matthew's wife and children, the legal process that followed is not going to change the fact that they lost their husband and father. And the newly appointed county official, 1 month into his tenure, was dead. Taylor County had suffered a loss it would never experience again, thankfully. And knock on wood, because I don't need to be putting that kind of bad juju on anybody. Now, this trial and what we know section, it's probably going to be very short, because let's just be honest, we don't know a whole lot. On my research, like, there's several websites that are all like law enforcement organizations. That's about all you can find at all. They all agree that the 2 brothers and sisters were arrested. They were charged with murder, and the case moved through the court system, but that's about all we got. None of the records tell us what happened next. Despite extensive searching of publicly available sources, the names of the brothers still have not been conclusively identified. The available records do not clearly reveal the outcome of the trial. We do not know whether the defendants were convicted, acquitted, or received lesser charges. We do not know how long the proceedings lasted. And we do not know what arguments were made inside the courtroom. In many ways, the missing information makes the story even more intriguing. A law enforcement officer was killed. Multiple suspects are arrested. Murder charges are filed. Yet more than a century later, much of the legal aftermath remains hidden in old court records, newspapers, and archives that yet be fully uncovered. So maybe this is a challenge to everybody out there in the internet land. What can we dig up? Because I will always say the internet is undefeated. No matter what it is, big or small, you locate anybody, solve crime. I mean, if you've not seen it, you need to see it. It's the Don't with Cats on Netflix, the hunting of the internet killer. Like, they literally hunted this guy down for torturing cat, which he deserved every bit of it. But yeah, just watch that one if you have any inkling that the internet's not undefeated. But with that being said, I mean, this is going to be a pretty short episode. Maybe we can dive back into it and go down the rabbit hole, if you will, and find out more information, get some open records requests going on, or search some old microfilms or something. I mean, it could be also the dead internet theory. I mean, it could be old enough that just the internet doesn't care. They're not even worried about it anymore. At this point, you would imagine that any of those old records should have already been like digitalized and put on the internet, because everything's on the internet, right? But regardless of it being a quick episode or not, I felt like as soon as I did a little bit of research that, yeah, the only coroner to ever been killed in the line of duty, the only peace officer in Taylor County, it kind of jumped out. We figured we'd do a quick one on this, and if we discover more down the line, we'll revisit. And in case you haven't noticed, the last couple I've been trying some closing lines, we'll call it that. So hopefully this is the one I'm going to stick with. We'll see how it flows off the tongue and how it sounds when I re-listen to it. With any luck, like I said, this will be my consistent one, because every county has a story, every grave has a voice, and every mystery deserves to be remembered. This has been Buried in the Bluegrass. See, it sounds pretty good. You can find me on Facebook under Greg Sexton, Old Gerg Media, TikTok, Old Gerg Media. The email, if you need to send me a nasty email for that matter, it's oldgergmedia@gmail.com. Listen to our other podcasts, WTF Lex, My Bipolar Brain, and our latest to be coming out, Kentucky Conspiracy Files. That one's in the progress, and the first season is going to be Drew Thornton, the Bluegrass Conspiracy, and it's going to be a doozy. And once again, thank you for listening, and have a great day.